is now recording. All right. Ex1H Bodmass. When you're doing this, most of it is going to be pretty straightforward. You're just going to make sure that the order is correct. Okay, that's all right. Here we go. Bodmass. Or sometimes they might have taught it in primary school. They've been changing the language to Bidmass. So it could be Bidmass or Bodmass. That's why I put order there, just in case you didn't know. But let's fill in the brackets here. When you're doing orders of operations are like your add, subtract, multiply, divide. Those are your four most common operations. As you go through, there is also squaring. Then there's square root, and then cube rooting, and all those other things that you're going to learn later on, like sine, cos, tan, log. But for now, four basic operations: plus, minus, times, divide. And that's pretty much what you do in year 7 and year 8. That's what I'm checking. Okay, do you know the four basic operations first? So with the four basic operations, this is the order. B stands for, hands up if you know what B stands for. Yes, Attila? Brackets. Write in brackets for me, please, and then draw the symbol to help you remember. So brackets will come first. So look for any brackets in your expression. Next one, O, which a lot of students may forget what it is. They remember D, M, and AS, but O means order. What is order? Hands up if you know. Carissa?
It's like indexes of powers.
Very good. It's indices or powers. That's why nowadays they might call it Bidmass, I for indices. So if it helps you, indices or powers, those all mean the same thing as order. And what that looks like is something like this. You might have a little square on top. Okay, so some examples could be 2 squared, 3 cubed. Okay, those are called orders. That's your powers there. Then next one, D. Obviously, we should be able to figure this one out. Let's go, Willem. What do you think D represents? Division. Very good. So division. Here's my symbol, division. Then M must be, what is that, Fitzroy? Multiplication times, and then A must be what? Let's go with Zara Jones. Addition, and then finally we got subtraction. Now I'm going to highlight the groups. This division and multiplication is in the same ranking. Doesn't have to go first or the other. It just goes left to right. Okay. Same thing with addition, subtraction. There is no ranking. It just goes from left to right. So it depends on what you see first. So the order usually is brackets is first, indices is second, or orders is second. Third is division or multiplication. And then fourth is addition or subtraction. Okay, they all work from left to right. And the reason why I'm highlighting that is because when we get to algebra in term 3, we're going to go backwards, which means you have to undo the order, and you got to learn the acronym backwards. It'll be SAM-DOB. And at that point, when I talk about SAM-DOB, you'll then understand what I mean. That's why I'm putting the numbers there. Okay, so that's for term 3 to understand. But just for now, you're focusing on 1, 2, 3, 4 in that particular order. Cool? Let's do an example. Now, I put a number line there just for those who just learned add, subtract of negative numbers yesterday and may still need a reference. That's just there for you to look at as I'm going through the maths. Okay? We're only going to do the first page for today, and then that's your fluency section. And then towards the end, I'll then do the answers in the back. Okay? All right, so let's look at the first example. You've got 4 times 2, in brackets, 2 minus 6, close brackets. So looking at Bodmass, what must come first? Let's go with Hamza. What comes first in this expression? What do you see? You see the brackets. So brackets is meant to come first. Remember, that's number 1. Indices is number 2. Division, multiplication is number 3. And addition, subtraction is number 4. Right? So I can see number 1. Yes, I do have brackets. So you work with the brackets first. This is number 1. Layout, question, method, answer. So I want a vertical layout, right? So 2 minus 6, let's work it out using your number line if you need the number line. So 2 is over here, minus is moving to the left, and you're going back by 6 units. So it's 4 times, now what's 2 minus 6 equal to? Let's go with Adele. It is -4, that is correct. So you think about it, 2 units to get a 0, and I need another 4 to make 6. So hence it's -4. Very good. Can you see how I'm laying it out? I'm doing this one first. 2 minus 6 is -4. The 4 is still there. And the multiplication symbol is still there. So people can see exactly what I'm doing first. I'm clearly working out the brackets first. Next step. Now the brackets are gone. Do I have any indices or orders? Any powers? No. So there's no power, so I skip that. Then I ask, is there any division or multiplication? Yes, there is. There is a 4 times a -4. It's not a subtract there. That means a negative. Okay, and that's where a lot of students get confused later on when I mix more negatives and subtraction. Okay, so that's a negative. So it's 4 times -4. So going back to exercise 1G, which some of you have done and some of you are still practicing. Exercise 1G. 4 times -4. What does that give me? Hands up if you know the answer. Yes, Zara? -16. Again, if you've forgotten how to do it, look at the signs. This is a +4. This is a -4. So according to the chart, plus minus is negative. And then 4 times 4 is 16. So you should have your answer as -16. Okay, write that down if you weren't sure. Let's do example B now. Same thing. Bodmass is still there available for you. All right, same thing again. Which one am I going to do first? Can I please have, let's go with Charlie. Which one comes first? It's the multiplication first. Now, I know there's the brackets there, so how I normally teach my students, especially if you're a beginner, then I would actually look at the brackets and say, what's inside the brackets? Let's deal with it. It's just a -3. So my next line, I would actually rewrite it all again. I say, that's a -6 and -6. That's a minus. I still have a 2 times. And then inside the brackets, because I'm dealing with that number 1 first, so brackets first. What's inside it? It's just -3. So I just write -3. So that teaches you that you're still following Bodmass. You're not jumping to multiplication first. Over time, you can skip that because you can clearly see that's just -3. And you do what Charlie just said, just do multiplication first. But I'm teaching you the Bodmass way. Yeah, so brackets first. Inside is just -3. Now brackets are gone. Any indices? Do you see any powers? No powers. So therefore you go to division or multiplication. Do I have a division or multiplication? Yeah, we've got a multiplication right here. So here's multiplication. So what am I multiplying? Be careful here. Even though the way I teach my year 9s and year 10s differently, just for you guys, I'm sort of showing you individual steps here. The number is a 2. That's a minus, not a negative. Yeah? So that's a 2. So it's 2 times -3. What is 2 times -3? Let's go with Attila. -6. Very good. So we've got 2 times 3, which is 6. That's a +2 there. This is a -3. So positive, negative gives you the negative. So I'm going to put it in blue so you can see. That's a subtraction. That's an operation. So if I write it again, you've got -6, subtract, and -6. This is what you were doing yesterday now. So this is exercise 1F. Can you see how it's linking? So every exercise you do is a building block to the next one. So from here, like yesterday, when you minus a negative, what's minusing a negative the same thing as? It is? Adding. Because remember, minus means going to the left, but then the negative means go the opposite of left. So if you're going to the right, which is opposite of left, going to the right is like adding. So in the next line, this is why I taught you yesterday, I wanted you to write it clearly. I wanted you to write, well, minus a negative is the same thing as adding, and I'm adding 6 units. Now let's look at the number line, what you did yesterday. -6 is over here. That's where you're starting. Adding means go to the right. So I'm going to the right by 6 units. What's my answer? Where do I end up? 0. So going 6 units this way, you can see you end up back at 0. So the answer is 0. Can you see my layout? It's very clear. So even without doing those little symbols there, if someone were to look at your layout, or if you were to look back and proofread where you went wrong, it's very clear what steps you've taken. And you can see where you've gone wrong. That practice at the start will help you later on to build the habits. Matteo, can you please move over here? Thank you. All right. Next example. So we're going to do example C. So I want vertical layout. As you're doing this, this is what I want to see. Okay, I want to see your clear thinking so that I understand that you understand the steps. Right? Here we go. Example C. Let's have a look at example C now. We've got a few things going on here. So same thing again. Bodmass. Which one comes first? Can I please have? Let's go with Gypsy. The brackets, very good. So brackets is meant to be first, and in this case, I do have brackets. But what's inside the brackets? It's just a -4. So what I'm trying to get you to practice is to rewrite that line again. It's 4 minus 2 cubed divided by, well, inside the brackets is just a -4. So you can see I've dealt with the brackets. That's number one. Number two is check for any indices. Do I have any indices or power, Xavier? Okay, which one? Good, 2 to the power 3. Now, just to clarify, 2 to the power 3 is not 2 times 3. Okay, 2 times 3 is 6. 2 to the power 3 means what? Good, there's a difference, okay? So 2 cubed means you're going to times itself 3 times, not 2 times 3. 2 times 3 is 6, but 2 times 2 times 2 is equal to what? 8. 2 times 4 is 2. Sorry, 2 times 2 is 4, and then 4 times 2 is 8. Okay, so 2 cubed is the next one. So next one is number 2. Here's my number 2. So this was number 1. I did the brackets. And it's just -4. Now I'm doing indices. And that should be 8. So here we go. Let's work it out. It's 4 take away 2 cubed, which I know is 8, divided by, this is still a -4. See how I'm keeping everything? Every line is something I'm changing something. Yeah, but I keep everything else the same. 4 is 4, equals, minus, minus. The 2 cubed becomes 8. Division's still there, and the -4 is there. Yeah? Next step. Then you ask yourself, well, next one is division or multiplication. That's your next one. That's group number 3. Do you see a division or multiplication? Yes, there is. So what are you dividing by? It's that 8 divided by a -4. So that's what you're going to work out. You're going to say, all right, well, the next step is number 3. 8 divided by -4. So this is going back to exercise 1G. Here we go. What's 8 divided by -4? Hands up if you know. Aqualia. Very good. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. And don't forget the signs. This is a positive, and that's a negative number. So positive 8, that's a -4. Positive, negative gives you an overall sign of negative. Let's rewrite the line again. I have a 4, so I'll write a 4. I have a minus sign, so that's the operation. And this is the negative. That's the sign of the number. Okay, now you're going back to exercise 1F yesterday. So this is 1G. Now over here, we've done division multiplication, where next is addition subtraction. So next one, I can see that I've got 4 take away a -2. Now Hamza, what's another way of rewriting? If I'm minusing a negative, it's the same as plusing. Very good. So what I should be writing here is that 4, that minus is left. Negative means opposite. So opposite of left is right. And we know when you move to the right, it is plus. Okay, so it's 4 plus 2. And that's much easier to do. So if you don't write that, some students can make a mistake. If you can do that in your head, fantastic. But I'm teaching you step by step. Okay, so 4 take away a negative is the same thing as saying plus. You're plussing 2 units. And 4 plus 2, what does that equal to? 6. So far, so good? Question, method, answer. Lay it out, take your time. I want accuracy over speed. I don't want you to rush through it. I'd rather you get it right and your layout's clear. Take your time. Okay, especially with Bodmass. All right, last one could be tricky. Add in a few extra things here. So lots of brackets, lots of negatives, and a square root there. Let's do the same thing. Bodmass. Brackets first. Here we go. So here's my brackets. And I've also got another brackets inside that. So if I were to write it, here we go. Root 16 stays there. Divide 8 times. Now inside the brackets, I've got another bracket, which really is just a -5, so you can rewrite it again. That is just -7 minus. Now that -5, it's just a -5. So I'm getting rid of the inside bracket first. But I still have the outside brackets, which I still got to deal with. So here again, we do brackets again. So in brackets, let's work that out. I keep everything else the same. Root 16 divided by 8. See how I'm just repeating it? I'm writing exactly what I see. There's the times. Now let's work this one out. Inside the brackets, I have negative 7 minus negative 5. What's negative 7 minus a negative 5? What's that the same as? So the negative 7, what's the minus negative mean? Plus. Remember that means plus. So remember that minusing a negative is the same thing as saying adding. Yeah, so I'm adding 5 units. Notice I'm keeping the brackets because we still haven't figured out what this is yet. We haven't got an answer. Negative 7 minus negative 5. You haven't got an answer yet. Very good. Now here, negative 7 plus 5, you can use your number line if it helps you. Negative 7's over here. Plus means goes to the right by 5, and you should see you end up at negative 2. So here, we can rewrite the line again. Let's rewrite it again. Root 16 divided by 8 times, and now we know, like what Attila said, negative 7 plus 5, according to the number line, we know it's negative 2. That gets rid of the brackets. After the brackets, we'll look for indices. Do we have indices here? No. That root 16 is not part of your Bodmass. Okay, so you don't know what the Bodmass is, but it helps to change that to a number. Do we know what root of 16 is? 4. So in that case, instead of writing root 16, we can then write 4. Now, for those who don't know what a square root is, square root just means, if I want a 16, what number times itself gives you 16? What's that number? 4. So that's what square root means. Square root means just figure out what if you squared the number, means what number do you times itself gives you 16. In this case here, it's 4. That's why we know that root of 16 is 4. Divided by 8 times, and again, I'm keeping everything the same. Negative 2 times 8 divide root 16. I've changed it to a 4. Next steps. So, Bodmass. What comes next? Hands up if you know. What comes next now? Willow? Very good. So remember I said division multiplication is in the same group. So what do? Move from left to right. Okay, it's because there's a division, there's a times, then you don't have to, you just work from left to right. Don't do 8 times negative 2 and then 4 divide that because it means something different. Okay, so when you see that, you have to move left to right. So here, let's work it out. Now this is a bit tricky. Anyone know what 4 divided by 8 is? Be careful. 4 divide 8 is the same thing as writing how many 8s fit into 4. Or you can write it as a fraction. It's 4 divided by 8. Anyone know what that is? 0.5, it's a half. Okay, so 4 out of 8 is the same thing as a half. If you didn't know that, you can use a calculator at this point. So any part that you're unsure, especially when it comes to fractions, I don't think they'll give you fractions unless you're doing the enrichment section. Then that point, use a calculator to check. Okay, so 4 divide 8 is not 2. A lot of students think it's 2. 8 divide 4 is 2. But 4 divide 8, 4 is smaller. And they're asking how many 8s fit into 4. So hence, it's 0 times, and then it's 0.5. So the answer here is 0.5. Okay, so 4 divided by 8 is 0.5 times negative 2. Now remember, 0.5 just means half. So what I'm really saying is I'm saying half of negative 2. Anyone know what half of negative 2 is? If it makes it easier, what if I said, what's half of 2? 1. So you do the same thing. Remember times. Do the numbers first. So half of 2. Very good. Because this is a positive number. That's a half. And this is a negative number. Positive, negative gives you negative. And you just do half of 2. Of means times. So half of 2 is 1. And positive, negative is negative. So the answer is negative 1. So this one's tricky because I added in a bit of division there and made it a fraction. But what I tried to emphasize there was move from left to right. Cool. Now, have you understood what I was doing? Even if you weren't able to do it yourself, but you understand the process, that's great. That's what I wanted you to understand for exercise 1H. Okay, so take your time. You've got a week. to get this in. So this is due next week, right? Make sure that 1F is good so you can add, subtract, and then the 1H will follow. Cool? All right, that's it for today's lesson. I'm going to stop there. Here we go. I'm going to stop the video there.